So excited that you're here. We really wanted to put together a series of videos that was going to focus on you guys as employees. Because I know we focused a lot on our employers, but for employees right now, it is an unprecedented time. So let me introduce myself first, and then Lisa, who's with us today. So I'm Cindi and I own Innovative Outsourcing, which is a staffing and recruiting firm. I have about 32 years in the human resources space, both in corporate and in small business. And I am passionate about trying to help people with the situations that they come in contact with as an employee or as an employer. So I'll throw it over to Lisa and she can introduce herself.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Dugan and I'm an executive coach. I work with an organization called Vistage, which is an opportunity for CEOs, business owners to come together every month to help each other solve their business problems, think about how they're going to grow. So I help them maximize their own personal potential as leaders as well as their business potential, and I work with individuals as well. Again, just helping people evolve into their next level of leadership.
Awesome. So I thought Lisa would be a great person to talk to us today because she kind of provides some executive coaching, and I just thought we should know what she has to say. And so we'll kind of just be talking fairly informally about some things today. So Lisa, let's set up a scenario where somebody is, because the focus on the talk today is somebody that used to go into an office every day and all their friends did and all their bosses did, and now all of a sudden they find themselves in a remote workplace. So we're not going to really talk about how to work remotely, but we're going to talk about how do you stand out? How do you, at the end of this, because we know there will be an end to this, how, when your boss looks back at how you've done over this time, how will you be the standout? So that's kind of what we're talking about. Not how to survive,
right,
but how to thrive and actually gain ground during this remote work opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about how they manage themselves, because I think that's a small key to this, or actually a large key to this is, what's their executive presence? How do they manage their time and those kind of things? So can you give us some helpful hints on that?
Sure. First of all, I think to give yourself permission to know that this is all new and it's new for everybody. And so the first opportunity is for you to recognize that there's opportunity in all of this. And one of the things I think we're sorely underestimating is the psychological impact of all of this. And so you're working at home for maybe the first time, or you're working at home more than you ever used to. You've got kids home from school. You've got spouses and partners home. You've got all this change all at one time. And so the quicker you are able to figure out what your new normal is going to look like and put some structure in place, the more ahead of the pack, so to speak, you will be. Because what your bosses need right now is someone who can quickly, in spite of all of the change, figure out the path forward. And so to manage yourself, the first thing that you'll want to do is determine, what's my office space? How can I be most productive? Where can I give the kids or anybody else in my household some structure and recognize that this is my focus time and this is my work time? How am I going to stay energetic? So it means working in time to work out and to get up and move in between calls and to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Because if you're not, it's kind of like, goes back to the flight attendant when they tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. You have to do that to be able to take care of all of this, navigate these waters, and take care of yourself. And so your mental state right now, your emotional state right now is so important. And the reason that's important is because the more energy you have, the more energy and opportunity your boss is going to rely on that. So, and it's not just your boss, it's the people that your colleagues, it's the other people in your world, because everybody needs a bright shining light right now. And so when they can find somebody or something that's stable, that's where they're going to look. That's part of how your presence is going to shine.
That is a great point, because we all know that in times of crisis, we like to call the person that's going to be the one that seems like the rock, right? Yeah. Let's just talk for a minute, and I thought I'd interject here about sharing too much personal information. Because we always have this problem with people because I deal with a lot of applicants. And so oftentimes we have this problem not only with applicants, but also employees. So right now I think I've heard from a bunch of CEOs that it's kind of like they're getting way too much information for their employees. They're telling them about their kids and being at home and their parents that are sick. And although it's important to be real with your boss or with
Yes.
your peers, I think we're seeing that people are maybe oversharing.
Yeah.
And so I think a good rule of thumb might be to also not overshare personal information, because that people just don't need something else to worry about.
Yeah.
And so kind of making sure that there's a kind of a fine line, right? That we want to be real, but we also don't want to be oversharing. So
Yeah.
I
It's a
think
great
that's
point.
the thing. What else do you think about kind of their executive presence, Lisa, on Zoom calls? What they should be wearing, what they should do with their hair, what's the importance on that?
Yeah, I think to me that's part of the routine and it's part of your energy. So I think no matter what, get up, take a shower, pretend like you're going to work. One of the things that I've observed over these last couple of weeks is the more structure that people put into place, and the more that they can find opportunities to have a normal day, the better that they function. And the reality is that there's neuroscience to go along with that, is the brain associates with context. And so we're not always used to making phone calls from the bedroom if that's the only place that we can find a place to talk. And so sometimes we have to re-navigate our world at home, because if I make my phone call better from a place that feels more like an office, that I'm going to be more productive doing it. So my presence, having my background the way that it needs to be, making sure that I've checked all of the equipment and my sound and all that kind of thing before I get on. Just anything that's going to make it look like I have my act together, even when we don't sometimes. But again, it all speaks to that energy.
Yeah. I know that kind of funny, I decided, okay, I'm on a lot of video calls right now because we're really trying to help people as much as we possibly
Mhm.
can. And so I'm living on video calls. And so I made a decision yesterday that I was going to figure out a space in my house that was the video conference area. So I wasn't going to live there, but that's where I was going to be for calls.
Yeah.
I just felt like it gave us an opportunity to kind of bring some warmth in. So I went around with my computer literally, and I tried about 20 different spots in my house before I landed on one. Because again, it exudes some confidence, it exudes presence. I picked some books that I want everybody to read on the back of my phone, because what a great time to read some good business books, right? I think there's some forethought that goes into stuff like that you might be thinking that would be a good idea to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because to your point, that the last thing your boss needs to see is that you're frazzled. I mean, everybody understands that everybody's stressed, everybody's got a lot that they're navigating, but your boss needs a touch point too. They need a calm in the storm. They need to know that with all the incoming that they've got on their plate, with all the decisions that they're making, that you've got your piece together. And
okay.
it's all these visual clues and these nonverbal clues that help with that.
And a really good segue to, let's talk about managing our boss in this particular time, or having what we look like in front of our boss. What's it like to be on the other side of us right now? So one of the things that I really think it's important to do is, how do we stand out as an employee? So let's talk about some things that make us stand out. One of the things that I think I'll add before I pass it over to Lisa is that I feel like we need to, especially those of us that might be introverts, we might not over communicate well. So we could go a whole couple of days without telling anybody what we've done. Well, that's okay when we're at the office because people stop by and ask you questions. But I think a key right now is to over communicate, right? Well, if you're an introvert, over communicating is almost not communicating enough, right? But
Yeah.
telling proactively what you've been doing, whether that's by at the end of the day, a four line email, or some dashboard that you can build that kind of shows what's going on real time in your world. But just communicating your value, not in a marketing-y way, but also just letting people know what you're doing without your boss having to say, hey, what did you do today, right? You want them to automatically know that, so that they know that you're not sitting at home doing a puzzle, right? So and I know you're not,
Yeah.
but it's important to communicate that, or there's no knowledge from them on what you're doing. So, what other
Exactly.
things, Lisa, do you see that you think would be really helpful?
So I want to preface this by saying that everybody's situation is different around this. But I want you to picture the thought bubble that goes above somebody's head. And in the boss's mind, what the boss is thinking is, well, I know they're working at home, but I don't know what they're doing at home. And we have software that helps people log in and log their time. So I know that they're online, but I don't know really what they're doing. And in the employees bubble, it says something like, why doesn't my boss just trust me to do my job? And so you bring up an excellent point, because in the absence of information, people will make things up. And so it is our job to make sure that our boss's bucket of that person is working is filled. And so some things that we need to do is to over communicate. And so it might look like a 10 or 15-minute huddle in the morning, meaning that, hey, boss, today my focus is X, Y, and Z. Tell me what has changed since yesterday, what new is incoming that I might need to be aware of as I do that. And to you, what's the number one priority? And make some kind of commitment or agreement around what's realistic about to get what done during the course of that day. The other thing is that things change in the course of the day. And so you might just want to touch base with a text or a quick email and say, here's my progress so far. Anything changing on your end that I should be aware of. And so as much as you can keep lockstep, arm in arm, virtual arm in arm right now is important, because what you need to recognize is that your boss, things are changing every day. The laws are changing. How we're going to handle situations are changing. Things that are closing down around every state and every part of the country are changing. And with all that incoming, your boss has to make some decisions, and he or she may not be able to get that out to you quick enough. So the more you're proactive and anticipating what might be coming down the pike, anticipating, we're going to have a virtual meeting with our team, and here are some things that I know have changed. So what can I do to prepare for that? How can I reach out to my colleagues to see what's on their plate, and making sure that we are lockstep in meeting some of the objectives that's on our boss's plate. It's your job to drive some of that communication even more than you ever might have before, because things are changing so quickly, and somebody has to be the quarterback for that. And because your boss is quarterbacking other things, the more you can step up and lead that and gather people and lead them towards that, the more you're going to shine.
That's awesome. So let's take this next, our last few minutes, and really talk about kind of what people can do if they find themselves at home, and maybe their job allows them to work from home, but maybe there's less to do right now.
Yeah.
Because maybe they used to work 10-hour days, and now they're finding that what work they can do is only 4 or 5 hours a day,
Right.
right? And they're getting paid for a regular 40-hour work week. So if
Yeah.
we find ourselves with 2 or 3 extra hours a day, my opinion is, instead of not working, my opinion is to maybe add an extra skill set, get better at something, look at your past review, and if there was something that you needed to improve on, how are you using this time to be able to do that? Are you identifying, like, say you're a leader of people, are you using this time to read some incredible books out there about leading people? Are you going through some online free courses about leadership? You know, are you getting with somebody who may mentor you on leadership? Are you, is it something like, for instance, if you are an Excel user, or if you're a Smartsheet user and could learn something new on a dashboard or something new to do that will help you as soon as this thing's over, are we spending any time doing that? Do you have any extra things to talk about with that? It's almost like we get to use, maybe if we have a job that has a little bit of extra time, or some retraining time that we don't normally get to have. So how do we purpose that time wisely, and then obviously communicate that to our bosses that we've gone above and beyond just our job and are doing something that will help us in the future?
Yeah, and I just want to re-emphasize the point you need about pulling out your performance review or something that maybe you and your boss have talked about, that at some point we're going to need you to have a increased skill level in X, Y, or Z, or at some point we know we're going to want you to be leading or managing a team, even if it's across the organization. I can't emphasize enough that if you can take this time to sharpen that skill, to do that and to be intentional about it. Because if it's already in your review, or even if it isn't, and you're able to say, I've noticed that I could be more efficient if I was doing X, Y, or Z. The more you can do that, the better. And so whatever you choose to learn should be strategic and intentional. The beautiful thing right now is there are free webinars on just about anything that you want to learn: leading people, managing change, Excel. All of us who have had to do more Zoom than ever before, they have wonderful tutorials. And what happens then is the more skilled you get in it, the more you can teach somebody else, which also increases your visibility. Because every time you are then on a call or you hear somebody struggling with something, you can also say, hey, I learned this in this webinar, so now let me share a few tips or points with you. You could even take what you've learned and put it together in a mini class that you're going to say, hey team, or hey boss, give me 10 minutes of tomorrow's meeting and let me teach what I've learned. And here's how that's going to make us more efficient, especially through this time. And so the more you can do that, increases your motivation, increases your opportunity to look at how whatever you've learned can impact the business and to make it more efficient and effective in a time when we are looking for new answers and for people to take the ball and run with it.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I kind of want to say before we leave is that I've heard from a lot of CEOs that their employees keep calling them and asking, are we going to take a pay cut? Are you going to furlough people? That's probably not productive at this point. As an employee asking their boss. Many bosses at this point just don't know. There's stimulus packages coming out. There's laws changing. There's their monetary situation is changing by the day, and continually asking that question is probably not going to get you a quicker answer, and is probably just going to create kind of a frustration that the boss doesn't even want to talk to you because you're going to bring that up all the time. So I would just, I keep hearing that from our clients that, oh my gosh, my people just they're worrying, which I totally understand why we're worrying. But it's possibly not the time to bring that up.
It's not. Now is the time more than ever to lean in, pick up the ball, and make stuff happen. And the more you do that, the more you are helpful, the more you are proactive, the more you are solution oriented and problem solving focused and adding value. None of us know if we're going to have a job tomorrow, but the more we can add value, it all goes back full circle then. Now, what we started with in managing yourself, then you're not so worried because you're just making stuff happen. And at some point that is going to pay off on the other side of this. But the last thing your boss needs is somebody else to worry about, that somebody else is worrying. And so just be that proactive, make it happen. Where can I help? Roll up my sleeves. Here's some things that I'm seeing kind of employee, and it's gonna work now, or at the very least you've adopted an additional skill set for whatever's next.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we're going to end it. We are excited to see on the back end of this what happens with you guys, because I have a feeling that not everybody's going to do this, right? Not everybody is going to think forwardly instead of just react in fear. And you can come out of this with a better set of skills and be even more productive and even more marketable than you are now if you take this opportunity and look at it as an opportunity and not just a crisis. So anyway, with that, if you need either one of us, please feel free to call. We'll send our information to you guys. So we're here for you. But thanks again. Thanks, Lisa, for joining us. And
My pleasure.
have a good day.
Thank you.